big update. These past 3 years, I have been using very frequently, if not necessarily daily, but maybe 4 nights a week, 4 afternoons or evenings a week, playing Overwatch and Apex Legends with the device, and updating it periodically with some major updates. I'm gonna see if I can get a little bit better light onto it, but it's not necessarily gonna be what we're hoping for. The additions have been well, we've got a bit of additional functionality. As you can see, these analog sticks provide in-game commands, and those are new. The last update only included the first analog stick on the front there, which I hit with my middle finger. And I'm going to throw the headlamp on. I'm going to throw on the headlamp, see if I can get just a little bit more light onto the device. I'll go through what the updates are. The first major update that I'll talk about is that this device now uses an optical analog board down here from Paradise Arcade. It's their so-called magenta board, and it allows for configuration via software of the null zone, and it's contactless. I think it's not optical, it's a magnetic device that reads the position of the bottom of the stick inside the board there. And the reason I switched from the original cherry switches, as seen here, is because I was hoping to, well, I wanted to reduce the null zone or dead zone down to the absolute minimum possible, and I was able to achieve that with this. Previously, in order to actuate movement, WASD movement with the stick, I'd have to move perhaps twice as far in any direction as I have to now. Now I'm able to actuate the stick with moving it about right about that much left, right, forward, and back, whereas before it was all the way over, not all the way over, but maybe twice as much. And it is also silent and very smooth, very fluid, very comfortable. What else? So I will say, unfortunately, I was hoping that simply feathering the stick like this would result in WASD movement. Unfortunately, I have to report that this does not, even after having configured via the software the null zone down to the absolute minimum possible, feathering the stick like this does not actuate movement. It does require that much movement of the stick. And ideally, I would like to just be able to almost not even, similar to the way these operate. These are much smaller, and therefore I suppose it's just a physical limitation of such a large device compared to these. These, you can move them so very little, and they actuate if you configure them as to do so. So I'll talk a little bit now about the additional analog sticks. They are the same implementation as we have always used. XPadder maps the keys that are sent to the PC, and we also now have this key over here. This is a Gateron white switch, or clear, however you want to describe it. So this is essentially mission accomplished. The device, the goal of the device was injury avoidance balanced with performance, both with equal importance. You need to have exceptional performance in order to participate competitively in online, competitive FPSs, Overwatch. I can't really get into PUBG. It's too sniper centric and precision. The level of precision is just, it's a very unforgiving game. But I love Apex Legends. That's just an absolutely brilliant game, and I play it a lot with this device. So this device does achieve exceptional performance, and also is completely functional in the area of injury avoidance. These fingers, as a result of overuse in League of Legends and kiteboarding as well, I have arthritis that I currently don't have any pain at the moment, but the injuries in these fingers will never go away, and it occasionally, like once a year, does come back when I overuse them in certain applications. So as far the device, this device achieves injury avoidance completely, spreading the load for movement over these fingers as such results in zero strain, or low enough strain that there's no need to worry. I have no worries or concerns about injuries, and that's wonderful. And so performance-wise, the device is very strong in the performance department. It's excellent, and I'm going to go through the functions. And so of course we have movement here, and I'm going to use Apex Legends key maps for the example because for reasons. So what we have is we have jump, reload, mark enemy location, ping, and interact. Over here we have open the map, thank a team member, and open inventory. Down at the front we have, I'm off camera. At the front we have use health device or shields, shield replenishment. We have escape, and we have alt tab so that I can resume watching my show while queuing. This lovely addition over here is crouch, and it works fabulously. It is essential to crouch and creep through buildings in battle royale games so as to reduce the sound of your footsteps alerting the enemy to your location, and this just works fabulously. And of course, since anything that causes continuous contact that can in any way cause inflammation will eventually cause injury, so for me anyway, because I'm so prone to injuries from overuse, I added this foam, and it is sublimely comfortable, and it also performs well so very, very, very happy with the device. What's next? Now, I will mention, just as an aside, that the original version of this project, the second half of it, was a Steam controller. Oh, by the way, this device is a sit-on-the-belly device. I do not sit at a desk to play games, because I don't at the moment, but I have a history of sciatica, and it will come back. And so I sit in a zero-gravity chair, and this device sits on my belly, although it seems to be that it would work quite well sitting on a desk. It seems to be that. But yeah, it's a belly device. And the other half of the original project was a Steam controller in this hand, because this hand had mouse overuse injuries that I have now overcome. I have overcome them. They can come back, and once a year, again, due to some kind of specific activity, carelessness, they do come back. But I have since, generally speaking, I need to clean the screen on this camera. Generally speaking, I've overcome those injuries, and in order to avoid them, I have set up, I've returned to using mice. Mice are wonderful, high precision devices offering an advantage or an ability to at least match the performance of other players, and using a Steam controller was vastly inferior in terms of agility for pointer movement. Flicks and other such essential movements, in-game movements, were much inferior to other players' abilities, as they are all using mice. So I have returned to using mice. They are wonderful devices. This is my gaming mouse. This is my work mouse. And this mod is, I cannot recommend it enough. Using you can click well into your 70s, 80s, and 90s. I have no doubt and never worry about injury. You really, I think that I've got that the actuation force required seen here is because, of course, I open the switches and cut the springs down. We're looking at something like 25 grams of required actuation force. This is sublimely comfortable, and I have no concern of future injury using these. So what is next? Next is that to wrap up this device, I've been very happy with it, but I am actually removing the stick and doing an overhaul on this device, and I will be laying a set of WASD keys into here. The stick is coming out. This front analog stick is getting removed. Sorry, I got a hangnail. That's terrible when watch review videos have a hangnail on the fingers. Apologies. Can't stand seeing that in 1080p or higher. At any rate, this stick is coming off. This analog stick is coming off. The magenta arcade stick is coming out, and a set of WASD keys is getting laid into there. Why? Although this device performs very well in terms of injury avoidance, especially injury avoidance, the sheer level of precision and agility for in-game movement is inferior to. I have decided or made a determination, and I'm sure of this judgment. Separate keys are superior. They offer superior ability to change directions when needed compared to a fighter stick. And you can even see, I started to suspect this as I've played extensively against players who are just mediocre gamers. Don't play Apex Legends or other battle royale games. You just never encounter normal people in these games. They are all ninjas on the highest order. I mean, it's just brutal out there. So I have desired to match, to utilize on some order the same kind of hardware they're using in order to at least not have a disadvantage. And so I also have just stumbled onto an arcade fighter stick for Street Fighter or other fighting games called the Mix Box, which instead of using a fighter stick like this, it has a WASD set of keys on the left side of the board. And it sort of like, I saw a video or two of a young man named Johnny Fraze. I believe his YouTube name is Johnny Fraze, and he shows on screen with a top-down camera using this Mix Box fighter stick box to throw sonic booms with guile in Street Fighter, and it clearly offers a level of a higher level. It provides or it allows players to achieve a higher level of dexterity with their movements, the articulation of their fingers, and to send commands, and that sort of stuck with me for about 6 months. And as I have moved through Apex Legends or Overwatch, I have felt, yes, it would be nice to be able to move to zigzag left and right without. This isn't necessarily slow. But let me demonstrate the difference. When I talk about the additional agility offered by separate keys, as with a set of WASD keys, I believe it's essentially double the level of agility, and I can demonstrate it pretty easily. If you're zigzagging in a game using a fighter stick like this, even after having modded it to with the lowest possible null zone, and of course also I cut the spring inside so that it moves easier than the lowest tension level stock spring available from Sanwa or whichever. And despite having done all of that, the level of speed at which you can zigzag using a fighter stick like this is like pretty much like that. That's your fastest possible zigzag. Now you wouldn't necessarily zigzag like that in a game, but for demonstration purposes, this is pertinent or relevant. So look at that. That's max speed, left and right. Now, fingers. That's basically double, isn't it? I think it's about double. So, again, not that you necessarily need to zigzag so fast, but when you need to change directions, the speed at which you're able to do so using this, well, it's awfully fast. But I'm telling you, I notice in-game that a disadvantage that I perceive that there would be an advantage to this, especially given that you essentially have your fingers resting just above the actuation point of the key, and when you need to actuate it, it's right there. It's right there. And I've seen this in action on the Mixbox, watching Johnny Fraze's hand with the top-down camera, and so I have finally decided I'm going to make that change. I'm going to gut this device. Now, of course, the original reason for this project was because of the injuries in these fingers. So how is it that I, of all people, am going to implement a set of keys for my fingers that cannot use keys in this way? And this way, by that I mean continuous game input, the likes, the kind that movement, in-game FPS movement requires. How is somebody like me going to go from something where there's, the load is spread over the fingers in order such that no strain is imposed upon any joints in the fingers, really? I mean, it's really just sort of like dragging the skin is all there really is here. Well, I have worked pretty extensively to create a work environment using a keyboard that achieves something that allows me to type, whereas I otherwise wasn't able to. And I had to do this because in January of this year, I decided to start studying programming, and I've been doing that 6 or 7 days a week. And after about 60 days of doing that on a set of cherry reds, I started to get my old injuries came back in these fingers. So I had to build a custom keyboard, and it's through that experience that I have discovered how to set up key switches that someone like me can hopefully use long-term for something like input, the kind that is required for FPS in-game movement. So just real quick, I'm going to show off this keyboard. I've got 2 of them. I've got one for travel, and I built this one too. I didn't necessarily build it. It's just a glorious gaming full-size keyboard, but I'm just going to show off what I did here. If I can get the camera right. So this is my workstation. Again, sciatica avoidance, sciatica recurrence avoidance requires that I make adjustments, and so this keyboard is Gateron clear switches, each of which has been cut open or opened up, and the springs have been cut. And what I've discovered is if you cut off 3 springs, you get, just real quick, here's the other one. This is my travel keyboard, which I painted. It gets banged up. The white paint comes off because I didn't use the right kind of paint, and I have to touch it up. So it's drying right now after a trip, a recent family holiday. All right, so what I've discovered with these keys, these Gateron keys, is that if you cut off 3 rows of the spring, you get a key that probably requires only 25 grams of actuation force to activate. But at this setting, the key will return to its topmost position with adequate levels of responsiveness, in my opinion. And so I'm able to code. I'm able to practice coding. I study Java, JavaScript. Yeah. All right, you gotta go back, Jamesley. You gotta go back. All right, I know. We'll do that later. I promise. We'll do that later. I'm able to. So I study Java, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and right now I'm just trying to learn. I'm starting to try to learn React, and a lot of practice programs in these 11 months. And after 2 of those months, I got the injuries. So now I can code using that keyboard, with the customized switches. And what I've also discovered is that if you cut off 5 rows of the spring, you get a key that I call them breathers, because it's like if you just breathe on it, it actuates. Really, what you get is a key where the keycap sits at the whatever that post. The post inside sits really just above the actuation point. And if you brush the key, you actuate it. And I originally tried setting up a keyboard like this, but it's not suitable for typing because you actually cannot rest your fingers on the keys. You simply can't do it. So that's not viable for typing, so I ended up rebuilding all the switches with new springs, so as to have having cut off only 3 of the springs rather than the 5. But what I'm thinking is that I'm going to do the 5 rows version of a set of WASD keys in here. And see, the thing is with typing is that with the version of the keys, the breathers that I call them, with the 5 rows cut off the spring, where you can't even rest your fingers on the keys. The thing is, if you do end up, in order to find the keys, to find where they are, to be ready to type, you do touch one of the keys, you actuate it. Even if your skin just brushes it, you actuate it, and that's just not suitable for typing, because in that scenario you end up having to actually hit backspace to clear the mistake, okay? But for in-game movement in an FPS, it's actually not a problem if, in the course of finding the keys, you touch the key in order to find your positioning. If you touch it and actuate it, it's not a problem because you're just moving forward 1 step, and then you just lift off, right? So maybe you'll find the key, you'll touch it, you'll end up moving unnecessarily, but it's not a problem. You just lift off, and you're ready. And a lot of times in FPSs, you're holding forward anyway. So to have 1 finger most of the time touching, I think it's going to work. So I think that's everything. Generally speaking, I don't think many people need this kind of to undertake this kind of project, but I do share it because sometimes I just like to keep the history of my work. I mean, this is just a good way to keep the history of my work. If anybody has any questions, I do enjoy talking about this stuff, obviously. So anyway, take care. Thanks for watching.